Welcome. Fantasy Football Scouts. Welcome back, guys. My name's Rob, and I'm with Dan and Scott, Mr. Hot Take in Sports Center.
Another episode to burn a player down.
Ahoy, ahoy.
Burning players down. We got three wide receiver busts here. These guys, you don't want to touch on draft day. You don't even want to mention their names, or maybe do mention their names so that someone else drafts them.
Just to make sure you're not playing with Brian because
that was my pick. I should have said it out loud. You're going up there. Oh man, you may as well take my player then. I don't mind. You got you, buddy. Yeah.
Don't be dropping names. All right, guys. So 3 wide receiver busts. Who wants to start?
Well, I'll start, seeing as I am an insane person and a lot of people are just going to be like, "Whoa, this guy's way out there." But Keenan Allen, this guy has had a little bit of an injury history in the past. Now, I know he gets the targets when he's out there, but I'm expecting a lot of regression from Justin Herbert now that he's going to be playing in an actual NFL environment and not having glorified practices. It's a lot different when you're out there. There's 80,000 people screaming at you. You have to call the protections, make sure everybody knows where they're supposed to be. And Herbert himself, I don't think he's going to be able to handle the pressure coming from a smaller school. And knock on wood, that Keenan Allen does not get hurt. He's coming to the days where those 100-plus targets, it's not going to be great for a guy on the other side of 30.
And so injuries. He missed 2 games last year. He played all 16 in 2019, and he only played 2 in 2018. So there has been some injury issues in the past. And I know you mentioned that before with Justin Herbert playing in a sold-out stadium compared to an empty stadium. So probably some differences there. Obviously some differences there. So that could come into factor into his production.
Yeah, for whatever reason, the Chargers are one of the most cursed injury teams in the league. Keenan Allen almost has a tale of 2 careers where I definitely had him pegged as an injury-prone player earlier in his career. There was no doubt about that. He was missing a bunch of seasons. He seemed to have shed that, like you just mentioned, Rob, with a few consecutive full seasons, which was great. I don't like him at his ADP. It's really that simple. Not that he doesn't deserve to be there. He's obviously one of the best slot receivers in the league we got right now with the small ball prowess. He's practically playing tight end for the Chargers in the way that him and Herbert operated. So it's probably fine, but I do always get worried about his injury potential. I identify players as early as I can in their careers as if they're either just injury prone for whatever reason, or just they just seem to, by the grace of God, they seem to always avoid them. And Keenan Allen is definitely right down the middle. You can look at 2 sides of his career and it's all over the place. So I just happily avoid him where he's going for other players that I like.
Injury riddled career. 2013 2 games, 2015 8 games, 2016 1 game played. Now you mentioned his ADP, and that's where
it's strange.
Yeah, that's where I agree with Dan there.
Yeah.
His whole career, he was always a value pick. You were always getting him in like the 6th round or something like that. And all of a sudden this year, for whatever reason, I think it's the Herbert effect.
He's
skyrocketed.
He's going in the second round.
Absolutely skyrocketed to that 2-3 turn, which it's insane. Just in the sense where he's been this player his whole career. He's always been good, but he was never going this early. So I'm not really sure why or how that happened. It's just kind of the nature of public opinion.
Could be the Justin Herbert
for sure. But
new quarterback.
Phillip Rivers was the man when he was there, so there's not really a whole lot of reason for it.
That's a really good point.
If he was going 2 or 3 rounds later, of course I'd say he's worth the risk for whatever. And I know
100%.
that's crazy. That's too deep down. I totally understand. It's just where you're getting him right now. There's no way he would be on my team. Not whether I'm doing a wide receiver draft or a running back draft. There's no way that I would take him. There's plenty of guys around him that I am very high on, so it's not a problem to cross them off my list.
So 2 reasons why you should avoid Keenan Allen is 1, the injuries, and 2, you could get guys like DK Metcalf, Justin Jefferson, Darren Waller, Terry McLaurin. You guys got CeeDee Lamb.
There's a whole list.
All of them. And if you really want a receiver, we talked about in our earlier episode, you can get DeAndre Hopkins just around a few picks earlier. Yeah. I mean, so if you really want a receiver, go Calvin Ridley, Hopkins, those guys are all around there anyways.
Yeah.
I know it's a different round, it's a different strategy, but it just goes to show you that there are ways you can avoid him and still get all the players that you like. It's just not a situation that I'm comfortable with this. This is the top ceiling ADP. For Keenan Allen to be here, you're going to have to get production out of him. He's going to have to play the whole season.
Hopkins and Ridley will probably go a few picks before Keenan Allen.
I was just insinuating that you could plan to avoid this guy by doing right with your other picks. You don't have to get this guy as your WR1 if you don't want to.
But all the other guys that I mentioned that are going around right before him or right after Keenan Allen, all the guys that
all
I mentioned
of them are
earlier,
literally in the same ADP.
Yeah, and probably all better picks than Keenan Allen. I mean, let's see what 2022 brings and what happens. But
it's just strange to see a guy as he's getting older moving up the draft board and not the other way. Right now he is far ahead of Julio Jones in ADP.
That's true.
That's very strange to me. You know, Julio is just as every bit of talented as this guy, and he's plummeted down draft board. So again, you could go get Julio at a later draft pick, or really similar if you really want to. I mean, especially I'll talk about that with my bust coming up, but. It's just one of those conundrums where public opinion has skyrocketed his draft stock for no reason, really.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I really like the bust pick on Keenan Allen, Dan. So go ahead, Scott. You said you got.
Yeah, my avoid pick, my bust is going to be AJ Brown. Now, there's a few reasons why I nominated AJ Brown, and it's not just this recent news about him. Should be ready for week 1 with these injury concerns. He had double knee surgery in the offseason. It's wild he played through that last year. I commend him. He is a baller for that. He is a tough mother if he was able to do that. So that's impressive. But as I'm looking at his numbers, he had 70 catches on 108 targets. That's a lot of maybe not drops, but that's a lot of balls that's just not catchable or going over him or going around him for whatever reason. I didn't micro observe why the numbers are that way, but it's a lot of not catching balls that are going his way. So even though he has the 106 targets, he only had 70 receptions on them.
Yeah.
He also had 11 touchdowns. That's it's a number that's hard to sustain no matter who you are. 11 touchdowns, so you can expect some regression from that. You throw on this he has a Q tag right now beside him, and it's warranted because they're uncertain, and to their credit, he hasn't really been practicing. He's been doing a lot of interviews. He's a happy-go-lucky guy, but double knee surgeries are really something that I don't mess with. That's the kind of guy that I'll probably never have him on my team if I'm just too scared. At the top of the line ADP that he's going at, because AJ Brown is going right behind the elite of the elites. We talked about it earlier. DK Metcalf, Justin Jefferson, that's a different story, but he's right there with them. It's kind of like the 2-3 turn, kind of the top of the third round. AJ Brown's not sliding past that just based on his numbers. People are going to show up with their book. They're going to see his numbers. They're not going to know that he has this little injury thing going on, and they're going to take him. So I'm just happily avoiding him for players around him that are I would take DK Metcalf 100 times out of 100 over AJ Brown, especially just this season, just based on the information that I have. So it's a tough go. I really like AJ Brown, but if he was a guy that was in the league without this double knee surgery, he'd probably be on a different part of my list as a thumbs up. But as for right now, I'm going to avoid him, even though he had good numbers as the final box score indicated. I think it's going to be tough for him to do that again.
The same can be said for his running mate there, Julio. I know everybody had the big splash there when they brought him over, but these are both guys that don't tend to practice and coming into a new system. AJ Brown might be fine. Julio definitely not. If you do want a guy on the Tennessee Titans, just because you're a fan of Derrick Henry or what have you, you want to be looking at Josh Reynolds.
Yeah, but Julio aside, you don't want to draft a guy that's going to miss week 1. That is just like you may as well just quit now. I mean, he's already being said highly questionable for week 1 at this point. So
for AJ Brown.
Yeah, for AJ Brown.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is not a good idea to draft players that are already hurt before week 1 starts. Guys get hurt as the season goes on. Guys are always going to play through injuries as we get later. You don't want to take a guy that's this hurt before we even start. It's really dangerous. It's beyond risky. I'm just going to have to happily fade him over better options, and hopefully he doesn't make me look foolish.
Right, like you said, right around the DK Metcalf
Yeah,
pick.
there's absolutely tons of options at that age.
So I had a draft in my other league. It happened fairly early, just a few days ago, and AJ Brown went third pick in the second round, and this is a 10-man league.
Wow.
So super early, and I wasn't looking to draft him. So when my buddy Frank drafted him that early, I was like, damn, that's good for me, right? That was real. I was really surprised with that.
Yeah.
Now, so you mentioned the injuries. Yeah, he might not even play week 1, and also we spoke on Julio Jones is there now too, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to eat into his fantasy points. Julio Jones is going a few rounds later as well. If you want a Tennessee wide receiver, possibly Julio Jones might be the better option.
Oh yeah, I agree. Again, like I said, he only had 70 catches last year. If he drops one of those, he's under 70. It's not a sexy. It's not a number. Like we talked about Hopkins in this round for must-haves on an earlier episode.
Yeah,
105. The guy catches a lot of his balls, 140 targets and 110 receptions or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking 30, 40 receptions more in the exact same draft position. Yeah. So I don't see any reason why you would take AJ Brown over DeAndre Hopkins over DK Metcalf. They don't have this current injury tag.
Exactly.
I mean, you don't want to start behind the 8 ball with these injuries.
Yeah. Really good point, Scott. The injuries and the addition of Julio Jones. Obviously, Derrick Henry is still there. So
yeah, they're right. And honestly, I would have overlooked these numbers if this wasn't for this weird, we think he's going to play. That right there was like, well, then I'm out. I'm done. I'm not drafting a guy that you think is going to play week 1. I need the guy to be ready to go week 1. I mean, there's only so many weeks of fantasy football to stack up W's.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. All right. Dan, you were going to say something? Or?
No, I already, like I said, probably the most reliable guy on that team in the wide receiver crops is Josh Reynolds, who's coming over from the LA Rams. But AJ Brown, if I'm indifferent to, it could go either way. But if this knee issue does linger and he does start to fall a little bit, absolutely grab him in round 3 or wherever he drops to, because that's good value. But right now, the second round, not so much,
Where I am on the board at the top, I wouldn't take him in round 3 myself, because I'm at that second pick. It's when you're at the top of the board, like where me and Rob are, it's really valuable still. The second, third turn. There's still really good players. There's still options up there. There's no way that I would take him at the top of the 3rd round with this injury concern.
All right, so my wide receiver bust is I'm going with the Tampa receivers. I may have mentioned this in a past episode. I don't like the Mike Evans or the Chris Godwin picks. Now they're going still pretty high. They're going a little bit later than the tier 1 receivers. But I'm not super high on Tom Brady. And like you said, Scott, he likes to throw the ball around, spread it around. He
spreads it around. He has no fear of changing up targets.
You still have Rob Gronkowski there as well. Now, I kind of like the Antonio Brown pick, but he's obviously going much, much later. So I don't mind the Antonio Brown pick, especially if Godwin misses time, which he did last year. Mike Evans is good to go. He should be fine. But if there's an injury between Evans or Godwin, then Antonio Brown moves right up the board. But when it comes to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, those are 2 guys that I recommend staying away from.
Yeah, we're all talking about the Bucs for a simple reason. We have no idea how to project or handicap this team's outlook for the season. A lot of people are interested in how exactly we can stack these guys up, and we're just not getting enough information. It's really weird. The preseason games are giving us nothing. There's a lot of reasons to always be concerned. Like you said, Brady is like a dinosaur in the NFL. He's an impressive man, but he spreads it around. Even his touchdowns, they go to nobodies. It's strange how he throws the ball to just random dudes. He is who he is. So I mean, it's not great. It's tough. Evans had too many touchdowns last year. He's not going to do that again, you would think. It's just a lot of going against you if you're trying to definitively take these guys. There's no comparables for them, I suppose. It's just a tough situation.
Fire up Scotty Miller. No. But in all seriousness, Mike Evans. What we've seen in the past, his problem is that unless he gets a hands transplant, there is no way that he's going to be consistent, because this guy will absolutely make you pull your hair out just watching him. I've owned him many years, and the one thing you can guarantee in life is death taxes, and Mike Evans is going to drop some balls. You got to take the good with the bad, but at that ADP where he's going right now, you're chasing touchdowns, which is a very fickle thing to project. Even with a guy like Mike Evans, who here I'm just pulling up his stats now, is a very touchdown connoisseur. Touchdowns 12. Like, he's either boomer, he's a boomer bust guy. So yeah.
Oh, he's great, but the yards with Brady is always going to be a problem, because Brady is just, he doesn't have. I mean, this is a 44-year-old Brady or whatever. I mean, he's not going to be getting the ball deep and downfield. It's tough, and it's tough for all of us, because I know that even on draft day, when we see Tampa receivers there at a certain point in the draft, we're definitely going to be interested in grabbing them. It's just right now, I have very little information or opinions to throw out there about them, because we've gotten so little from the staff, from the writers, from even the TV shows. We're just not getting a lot of noise. We were even talking about Antonio Brown off air. We were wondering what the hell's going on with this guy, and I'm not seeing anything. I don't think it's a bad thing for Brown. It's just we're just not getting anything to put pen to paper and say, this is why I want this guy because of this reason. Very hard.
And if you look at, like you said, Dan, the ADP. For Mike Evans, let's start with Mike Evans. He's going in the third round in most drafts. And if you look at guys that are going around him, you got George Kittle and Robert Woods, for example, even CeeDee Lamb. Those are some big names. I like all those those names over Mike Evans. And then if you go a round later, you got Chris Godwin going, and you got guys like Julio Jones and Cooper Kupp around and Brandon Ayuk as well.
I mean, I can keep throwing them on, because I've been warming up to Amari Cooper again, with Dak Prescott finally coming back and throwing the ball again. It looks like the Dallas guys are going to be good to go.
Amari Cooper?
Yeah, well, because Dak is back now, and he practiced today. That's good news.
Yeah.
You mentioned Cooper Kupp, who I'm high on. I was high on Kenny Golladay. We haven't talked about him because of the injury, so that's a real heartbreaker. Yeah. But I was interested in him over these guys. Even Juju. DJ Chark. These are all guys that at least I feel like can give you a bit of a floor on their teams as they are. Juju is not a primary option per se. Well, he's going to catch a lot. This isn't a Juju podcast. But all these guys, to me, are a little bit more trustable right now than these Tampa receivers, because I'm just not getting any type of Mr. Hot Take. Can't make a hot take on the Bucks because it's just they're like the magician. They're Houdini, Houdini. We're just not getting enough to really pound the table.
Yeah, when it comes to Evans and Godwin, I just think that there's some much better options around that same ADP, and it's not just a couple guys. There's going to be a few guys, because this is early in the drafts. You're looking at like round 3 and round 5 approximately where these guys are both going. So I think there's just some much better options out there. Besides Mike Evans and Chris Godwin.
It's funny, because their running backs are giving us very similar takes right now. I was reading up on the running backs today, and it's just like no one really knows what's going on or what to do.
Fire up Gio.
Yeah, that's true. We did get some pro Gio Bernard. Of all the players that Tampa wanted to talk to us about, they talked to us about freaking Gio Bernard. There are some sick guys up in Tampa right now, and I am not for it.
It's got to be that cookie duster, man.
I don't know.
Have you seen that stash on Gio?
Well, Brady does like his dump off running backs, but we're not talking about running backs. It's just a very chaotic situation in Tampa. They don't really care. They won. They're happy. They're going to mess around this year. I wouldn't expect. You know what? I will make a hot take. I don't think Tampa's going to have the greatest years. I think they're probably primed for a bit of a disappointment, because they really overachieved last year. People don't remember, but they did not look the greatest the first half of last season. They were not primed to make the playoffs. They got their asses kicked by Green Bay one week. They came back later in the year and smoked them. It was just a really strange season for Tampa Bay, where Brady does what Brady does. He got acclimated, he got familiar, he got comfortable, and he took over. But it was looking real touch and go for a while for them. So maybe it will come crashing down a bit for them this year.
Good point.
Maybe it will be a bit of a disappointing year after they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They actually kicked kicked Green Bay's butts twice.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
They picked.
I remember the game slightly wrong,
yeah.
but be all that as it may, it was a bit of a strange year for Tampa last year.
All right, so wide receiver bust. I got the Tampa receivers.
Watch out for Keenan Allen.
Yeah, and I got hobbled AJ Brown.
There you go. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you guys again next time.
Peace.
Ciao.